Hey, everybody, Bobby Medina here with my buddy Paul Barron. We are back and we have something we think you'll find interesting. We call this little video here How to Survive Brutal Gigs. And for the most part, most of us have been through really demanding gigs. And the question is that's come up a lot in the group is how do you do it? You know, it's different if you just have one night that's demanding as opposed to like you, Paul. You're out on Frozen right now, and you guys got 8 shows a week plus sound checks and maybe some rehearsals and stuff like that. That's a lot of playing.
And Bobby, you just got back from Nashville playing with Wynonna Judd, and I know that was a pretty brutal schedule you had out there. So tell us a little bit about that too.
Yeah, well, for me, this was a lot more than I had bargained for. I thought that I was told we were just going to be doing short shows, nothing more than 60, 75 minutes. And as it turned out, most of the shows were 2 to 3 hours, depending on the particular show. It happened to be an Elvis festival, which was a blow in itself. There were only 2 horns on the gig. We were doing 3 shows a day, and most of those, like I said, were 2 to 3 hours. Total of 10 shows in 4 days. Plus, the thing that I hadn't banked on was that we had to get back every morning. Our first show was at 11 in the morning, then 3, then 6 at night. The first show was at the first sound check slash rehearsal with the new entertainer was at 9:30 in the morning. Take a small break and do the show. Then we'd have to collate all our music for the next show, do a quick sound check, another sound check with the new artist, another rehearsal with him, maybe have lunch, come back, do that show, and the same thing for the evening show. So it was a lot of playing. I mean, basically 9 hours or more a day, and I'm not used to playing that, and I haven't played that much probably since I was in drum and bugle corps, or maybe working on a cruise ship as you did, which can be brutal, and your schedule as well. You're out there with Frozen, so tell us about what your week is like.
Sure. Well, mine is not nearly as brutal as that. And I guess the fortunate part is that we always know what to expect. You know, there's never a surprise like, oh, and by the way, you're going to do a sound check and rehearsal, for hours and hours and hours before playing. We always know our typical schedule is travel Mondays if we're going to a new city. Travel Monday, if it's not been too far from the previous city and the trucks can get there and the crew has got a huge load in, we can conceivably and have done openings on Tuesday night. So that would mean a 2.5, I think we do a 2.5 hour sound check in the day, and then we have a little break, and then we open that night, and then we do 8 shows. So we've Tuesday through Sunday night, and Saturday Sunday matinees. So for us, the toughest part is doing the 2 doubles back to back on the Saturday and Sunday. But we have to repeat that the next week and the next week and then and it's
exactly
on and on and on.
So I think we'll work backwards on this one. I'm going to talk about some of the things that happened to us as a result of playing a lot, and then we'll talk about a few ideas how to get through them, how to avoid these things. But I'll go first here. So what happened to me this past weekend was I'm in Seattle where I live. I flew out to Nashville, so there's a different climate out there. It was a lot drier than it is here. I kind of, with this amount of playing, I experienced. I call it windburn. I mean, I suppose it's a form of chapped lips, but it's just from playing so much, and so I had chapped lips. My chops got swollen. Those are the 2 main things. But I mean, my cheeks, like literally, I smile or laugh or eat, and I can feel these muscles haven't been worked so hard over these days, And so those are some of the things that I felt just off the top off my head. What do you feel when you're out doing these?
Well, I can also say that mental fatigue, is a factor as well. And like you said, the traveling part of it, there's been some times where I've been joining a tour or rejoining after a layoff or something, and I've done some days where it's been 18 hours of travel, and you get a few hours sleep, and then you got to get up. And on other tours, not on the Frozen tour, because we're a self-contained orchestra, so we don't pick up local musicians everywhere. But most of the other tours I have done have been that exactly. So Tuesday morning, I typically would get there at 8:30 in the morning for a 10 o'clock sound check, so I could get some time in and get the music out. Oftentimes I was librarian as well. And we'd have a 4 or 5 hour rehearsal. Then we'd have an hour and a half off maybe, and then another 90-minute sound check, and then go into an 8 show week. So yeah, it's pretty brutal. And at some point, maybe you start feeling fatigued with your chops, but also your body, you're just tired. And if you're not thinking of things and the proper mechanics, it's this that can go first, and then the chops follow really quickly after.
Well, and I experienced that because this schedule was basically early morning, and we weren't done till, I don't know, 10 or 11 at night. And then I'd go back to our hotel and there'd be an after party. So I'd hang out a little bit, and then before you know it, the next morning is here and it's up and at 'em again, So in my case, and this was only 5 days, but it was 5 days straight. You can't take off time. Perhaps on a travel day or on a Monday, if you're really hurting, you can do a little. You can take a little bit of time off, or maybe play really lightly. So let's talk about maybe the things that help keep us from folding on a gig like this. And for me, I'll say one of the biggest, a couple of the biggest things for me are watching my volume, not overly playing too loud. There's a time when you need to step on it to get the sound you need. But for me, I got that line. And if I cross that line too many times, it really spreads my chops. And another big thing for me that I was really careful about on this particular show was just my mic technique and just knowing my angle, playing at my correct angle. I'm in the back playing. Nobody cares if my horn is perfectly straight out or angled down a little bit, and I need to angle it down to play right. Those two are the biggest things that I really worried, or not worried about, but focused on getting right, and my breathing, of course.
Yeah, those are the two biggest, I think, pitfalls for me and probably for many people. So, the way to counter that, as far as not playing too loud, is to just try and internalize the feeling of playing with enough intensity and enough air and so on that you're getting the job done. But in many cases, if we're playing big theaters or big arenas, it can get so loud that the monitors have to be so loud that they're tearing your head off, and they're not going to turn it up that loud, or you just can't hear yourself well enough. And if you're trying to compete, this is going to lose out a volume knob every time. And I've certainly tried to compete with that volume knob and failed miserably. So yeah, to just try and internalize that and always play for the correct feel. Like Bobby said, also breathing, if I'm making sure I'm breathing correctly, I'm doing my proper body mechanics, and just focusing on, okay, it feels right. I got to just trust that it's coming
exactly
out the horn.
There's a lot of people that, and our ultimate goal, I'm going to say, is to sound great. I was fortunate because I had a killer monitor mix right underneath me, and I could hear myself, so I could tell that I still had a full sound. I think people oftentimes don't realize that the trumpet is a loud instrument. We don't need to play it extra loud. It's already loud even when we're playing MF. You see directors going, "No, you guys are too loud." So the trust issue comes in. And when you're in these situations where you don't have monitors, because I've been in that situation before, you really can't hear, especially, and I'll say, especially if it's an outdoor show, you really can't hear yourself. And so if you want to have this singing like quality and you're trying to listen for your sound, you're not going to hear it out there. So this is why, one reason why it's really important to understand your body mechanics and to be able to trust yourself. I think another thing is to just really be aware. I guess that's the word I would use. It's one of the most important things for me. Aware of your surroundings, aware of volume, aware of all your things, posture, breathing, things like that. Mouthpiece pressure, that's another one for me. I got to just be aware of it. I can feel it digging in a little bit. I'm getting a little more tired. Let's not take this to the extreme. Let's back off.
Okay. So, Bobby, you talked about feeling the windburn, on your chops, and I felt that too. And I've wondered, like right now, I'm in Tampa, Florida, and so it's a different climate than the Northwest or, a lot of places. And so how do you deal with that windburn feeling? And do you use a product or what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I've tried all kinds of products over the years, and I think everybody needs to find the products that work for them, because for what works for one person may or may not work for somebody else. But for me, on this particular sojourn, I used some of the Robinsons stuff, the lip repair for my chapped lips. I also use Blistex. I know some trumpeters don't like Blistex. I like it. It works for me. Used it since I was a kid. It's always been one of my favorites. And then as far as like for the swelling, I mean, I used some Lip Renew by Robinsons, which is an all natural organic thing, and it compound, and it's you rub it on and it helps alleviate some of the swelling of your chops. And then lastly, when we got to the last couple days of this thing, especially the last day, I used ice. I put ice in a napkin, and I iced my chops down in between shows, and that helped me a lot, I'll say. And that really allows recovery. I mean, sports athletes use that in between, in between workouts and stuff like that. And I found that works great for me. I don't know if you do that, but I do that.
All of the above. Yeah. As far as icing the chops, a really ice cold IPA, and you just sort of dip your lips into the top of the glass. That really works. Yeah, it's interesting how the science in sports recovery and building and all of that is such a huge deal. But the science and chop recovery has not until recently been a big thing where it really should be. And as well as that, I think preventative, like
absolutely,
athletes are so great about warming up their bodies and stretching and doing this and that and short sprints before they do the big race. And as trumpet players, we all warm up and we've heard about that, and we all do it and so on. But oftentimes we're doing it just by rote, and start with this note and proceed up to this note, and without any regard of how things are feeling. So a lot of it, I think we could take a page from sports and sports nutrition and so on, and transfer that onto the trumpet. I also will use sparingly, not very often, hopefully not very often, is just ibuprofen. And especially before I go to bed, if I've had a particularly hard night and I'm already a little swollen, that helps get the lactic acid and things flushed away. And I'll also, in addition to using the Robinsons remedy stuff, is I put it on my chops, and while it's still kind of moist and slippery a little bit, is I'll actually push and do almost a deep tissue massage on that lump that I seem to get when things aren't working well. So That's what I do.
So there's a few ideas for getting through and surviving brutal gigs. We're going to talk in an upcoming video here about performance versus practice as well, and the differences. So stay tuned for that. You guys all get out there and practice, and we'll see you soon.